Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome for tuning in to Fundraising BIDness Talk. This is episode 65. I'm Patrick Cyber, the lead auctioneer and owner of G Events LLC, based here in beautiful Beaverton, Oregon. And we gather each Wednesday at noon to chat about latest things happening in the fundraising auction or golf tournament business. And today I'm flying solo today, but I'm excited to say that I got a commitment this morning from a great auctioneer down in the Bay Area, Sacramento area, actually. He's going to be joining us here in a few weeks, and I'll spread the word here. I want to thank Dee Dee and AJ for tuning in, being part of the show the last few weeks. So it's been a lot of fun. But I wanted to chat today about a few different things. And one of the things that is on my mind, just because as I've noticed as I am talking to clients about their fall of fundraising auctions right now, it appears to me that most events are headed back to in-person here in the Northwest, which is great. We're including some virtual elements from the standpoint of some are live streaming their in-person event and coming up with a in-between format, trying to take advantage of both channels. But also we see a lot of, almost all of our gathering events have moved their, what was traditionally their silent auction to an online auction, which we're a huge advocate of. We think that that is absolutely the way to go. There's a lot of cool advantages to doing that, not only for our organization, but it also, I think, returns great benefits on the back end too, financially. So one of the things that we and that is a result of what we learned through the pandemic with respect to online auctions and being virtual and doing things like that. One of the things that we also did in that virtual environment that I think is worthy of consideration moving forward as we return to in-person here in the Pacific Northwest. And I'm going to talk about it now, and I'm going to use these terms kind of interchangeably, because depending on the group, they have it called something different. And so I want to be somewhat clear, but we're talking today about the fund and need portion of the program, which is also the special appeal, which could also be the paddle raise. It can also be referred to as the ask. And this is the portion of your program, your live program, whether it's live streamed or in person, is irrelevant. This is where you're asking for straight cash donations from your audience. And it's a pretty basic component. I think it is possibly even the most important component of your live auction event. And the reason I say that is it is without a question the most money that you are going to raise per minute of your entire event. And I think that it deserves much more attention than I find most folks give it on the organizing side. It's one of those things that tends to get put on the back burner with respect to planning and preparation for it. And I think that's for a lot of different reasons. I think one is it doesn't beg to be attended to, like sponsorships or ticket sales or procurement of silent or online and live auction packages. People tend to put that special appeal on the back burner. And then you comes to the event, and I often find that we're not as prepared as I wish we were for it. I feel like we could raise even more money with some more attention given to it. So it's something I talk to all my clients about. It's something that I like to see at the top of every committee agenda. Every committee meeting agenda is, where do we stand on the appeal? And when I say where do we stand, it's a couple of things. First of all, do we have a strong project that we're funding, if it's a specific project? Do we, I guess really the best way to say is, do we have a strong need at that point? And then also, how are we going to communicate that message? Is it a compelling message? Are we going to communicate it via video? Are we going to have a individual get up and speak, or a couple of individuals speak? Or are we just going to turn it loose with the auctioneer or the executive director to lead that charge? And I think, every group's different, right? But there's strategy to it, and we want to make sure that we are doing it, creating that strategy. And then most importantly, there is also letting our community, our audience, know that we're going to be doing it, and that trying to get a sense, if we can, of some of the commitments that folks are willing to make. That'll, I call them pre-commitments. Prior to the pandemic, pretty common in our circles to discuss them as leadership gifts. We were really looking for someone to raise their paddle at that first level, that highest level, and that was great. When we moved to virtual, I was really adamant that we looked for pre-commitments at every level, because that allowed us to tell the audience during the live stream, that we were in essence receiving donations. Because of latency and because of you were rolling the dice that people were tuned in, it was great to have those pre-commits in place. So as we got to a level, we could acknowledge those folks as supporting us. So I meant to say earlier too, as you tune in, drop a say hello and let us know who's watching and where you're watching from, and say hello, tell us where you're tuning in from. And as always, feel free to ask any questions. Anything comes up that you want to, whether it's on this topic or not, irrelevant to me. We're here to chat, right? It's fundraising business talk. And so let's answer your questions too, right? So getting back to the appeal, the fund to need, the special appeal. For those who are new to the concept, I want to share with you that, as I mentioned, this is the time in the program where we traditionally ask for just cash donations, and people raise their paddle. They're at a certain level, whatever that level may be, and they're acknowledged and thanked and right? And we usually start at the highest level, and we move down to the lowest level. And I would recommend traditionally 5 to 6 levels should be really as much as you want to allocate to this. 5 to 6 levels is, kind of hit your sweet spots and make sure, that doesn't mean that you don't want to, take donations outside of that. If somebody wants to go higher, or occasionally somebody wants to go below your lowest level, absolutely, we'll take all the donations. So that being said, one of the things that I was really focused on today is, where does that belong in the program or the run of show now? Where does the paddle raise fit in the agenda? For many years here in the Pacific Northwest, I would say that the paddle raise has followed the live auction, or it has been about 2/3 through the live auction. And that's different than what I hear, or I had heard from my counterparts out on the East Coast and in other parts of the country, where they absolutely are adamant that they start their program, they start the event with the paddle raise portion, or the fund to need portion of their event, and then they finish with the live auction. And everybody has their opinions. There was, I think, the kind of the logic here in the Pacific Northwest was that you were concerned that people were not going to raise their paddle for the special appeal because you hadn't had the live auction yet, and they might be bidding on a special trip or a special experience, and they kind of wanted to know where they were at financially within their personal budget before they got to the paddle raise. So And on the East Coast, they felt like you lost people if you did the live auction first, because there was only, let's say, if you had, 25 of your bidders, of your participants who were actually bidding on live auction packages, compared to 100 or 200 or 300 people who could participate in the fund to need, that why would you make those fund to need or special appeal folks wait for the live auction to be done? In many cases, they felt like the most philanthropic people tended to be older people, and maybe they tended to leave before the live auction was over. So, here in the Northwest, the way we dealt with that issue is, depending on the number of live auction packages, we would position the paddle raise or special appeal in different places within the live auction. We talked a lot about the escalator approach for ordering our live auction packages, or the curve. And in an escalator format, rule of thumb for me and what many of my peers operated under was, if it was a 10 live package live auction, that we would use the escalator approach, and we would put that paddle raise at the end of those 10 items. Now, if it was a lot of school auctions or other fundraising auctions here in the Northwest, they might have had anywhere from 15 to, I've done as many as 40 live auction packages in a gathering event here pre-COVID. We don't see those anymore, at least not so far. But we would create a curve and use the curve approach for determining where our paddle raise went. And when I say that with the curve, is that we would start out with items, and in the middle of that run, however many there were, let's say 20 items, when we got to number 10, that would be our highlight item of all of it would be our best package, the one that we thought was going to sell for the most, would be in the center of the auction. And then we would come back down on the backside with lower valued items. And when we did that, we about 2/3 of the way through that curve, so you're on the downside after your highlight item, then we would place the paddle raise or the special appeal. And I always say it's very difficult to compare events because you don't have a constant, right? You can't do it two ways and compare apples to apples. It's always apples and oranges, but you get a sense based on the dollars raised and the feedback from your audience, right? So now let's fast forward. So those were the two ways that we used to do it pre-COVID. And then when we moved to virtual, I think just about everybody that I saw here in the Northwest, I know I was adamant about it with our designs and our run of shows, was that we moved the appeal to the first part of the program. And the reason we did was that when we started in the virtual world, and we did one of the first ones, March 13th of 2020, one of the things that live streamers told us was that it was very challenging to keep your audience's attention for more than 20 minutes. So we were like blown away, because our stage programs for a lot of events, especially if they had more than 10 live auction packages, we might see 2 and 3 hour stage programs. And so now all of a sudden we were told we only had 20 minutes. It's like, wow, we better get the most important thing, which is your paddle raise, right? Like I said earlier, the most dollars we're going to raise per minute, we got to put that at the front of the program. We got to put that at the front of the bus, and let's see how we do. And I think that it was extremely well received. In fact, we found that that it worked very well. Now, we did come to learn that we could, an hour seemed to be the sweet spot, not 20 minutes, but an hour seemed to be the sweet spot for the length of time for these live streamed events. And we would go with, we designed a run of show that basically had 5 live auction packages and a special appeal, and that for us to execute those 5 live auction packages and that special appeal and really tell the story about the nonprofit and get our mission driven compelling stories across, that it was about an hour, right? But we always, I don't know that I did one of the, I think I've probably done 70 of them. I don't believe that I ever put the appeal after the auction. We always started it off with it, and we had tremendous success, record numbers. Really, very, very high percentage of our clients saw as good, if not better, numbers financially than they had in their in-person event. And some say, hey, that's because it was less expense. No, it doesn't matter. The net was the net, and the net was better in many cases in that format. So as we move forward, I think as we get back into gathering events, where do we put that paddle raise? Where do we put that special appeal? And I would tell you that it's unique for every group. But I have quite a few of our clients this spring, as we've moved back into in-person, we have been focused on keeping that stage program still an hour. Okay. And what I'm talking about when I say the stage program is that fundraising component of the night. That is the focus. That's why we're there, right? Regardless of the food service format, regardless of the social hour, regardless of the online auction component. I'm talking about that period of time where we're going to do our live auction, we're going to do our paddle race. I'm saying that component of the program needs to be, we've stuck with an hour is our focus. And part of the reason for that, folks, is that, and we saw this a lot in the spring, was that people are happy to get back together. They enjoy getting back together. And I find, as I saw the groups and I would kind of work the room, if you will, I noticed pretty regularly that these folks don't need entertainment. They don't need a silent auction to entertain them. They don't need a wine pool. They don't need a raffle. You can have all those things. But in the past, we always felt like if we were going to have people gather an hour before our dinner, that we needed to entertain them with things. And what I saw this spring, and I think it'll continue, I think it's just the result of, I don't call it evolution, whatever you want to call it, but it's how the social scene has evolved, is that people want to chat. They want to catch up. We're still doing a lot of Zoom calls. We're still doing a lot of things. And so we don't get together in person socially or business wise as we once did, and people enjoy getting together. So it's been really cool to see everybody get together. So with that being said, that also carries over into the mealtime, and I think that people are, they're interested in catching up with the people at their table. They want to spend time with their table. So I'm a big advocate of keeping that stage program to an hour. Okay. If you want to have a band afterwards, you want to have an honoree that you're, honoring that night for your organizations, feel free. I would do it after the fundraising component, right? And so now the question becomes, within that hour, where does the special appeal, where does the paddle raise go? And I have to say, I tend to recommend putting it in the front end for most groups. I think that, we start those programs during dinner service traditionally, right? While people are enjoying their meal. And I think that is when they are maybe the most focused, maybe I don't want to say quietest, but they are susceptible to having you gather their attention, would be the way I would put it, right? And when you've got their attention, I would go ahead and drive home the mission of your organization, drive home what you're raising money for. And people ask me all the time, well, what's, whatever that special project is, you need to be able to explain why we're doing that, or even if it's for general expenses or tuition assistance at a private school, explain and tell the story of why you need their support, and then ask for it right then, right? Ask for it right then, get their support, and then let's have an auction and have some fun. I'm going to tell you that my personal observation has been pretty consistent through pre-COVID for the last 10 years or so, is that I can't tell you how many times when we were doing the appeal on the back end of an auction, okay, so after the live auction, I can't tell you how many times I saw people bid on a live auction package, maybe a trip to Europe or a, could be anything, a vacation home, could be whatever special experience it was. They might bid up $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 on a package and not win it, okay? Not be the winner. So they had capacity, okay? And then we came to the paddle raise portion of the program after that, and they raised their paddle at $500, okay? So I'm not, I saw that a lot. So I'm not buying into the concept that you have to have the auction before the paddle raise so that people can, know whether they're going to buy a package or not. Because I didn't see it equate that way, right? That was just my personal observation. So I tend to focus on keeping it on the front end. At the same time, I have a client this weekend. We're doing their event. It was it was not what they wanted to do, and so we're gonna do their 7 items, and then we're gonna have the special appeal, and that's totally fine. My number one focus when we do that, at least here in the Northwest, is that we make sure that we are done with fundraising by 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock tends to be the witching hour here in the Pacific Northwest for whatever reason. Doesn't mean you can't have a party and you can't keep going and you can't keep the bars open. But from a fundraising standpoint, I really find anything after 9 o'clock, there's a diseconomy of scale. It tends to diminishing returns at that point. And that's where I tend to see people get up, is around 9 o'clock. I don't know if it's babysitters. I don't know if it's time for bed. I don't know what it is. Time to go to the next party. But, 9 o'clock tends to be that time. So if you're going to do your paddle raise, your special appeal, your fund to need after your live auction, or in the second part of your live auction using a curve method, then really make sure, in fact, I recommend this all the time, let's start at 9 o'clock and work our agenda backwards so that we make sure that we have covered all of the fundraising before 9 o'clock. And I can't stress enough how important I see that being important in our events. And so, finish that fundraising by 9 o'clock. I think it's crucial to your success. And I think some folks really enjoy, I like the concept that everybody is kind of focused, having dinner, and we're going to kick it off. We're going to put the appeal on the front end of the auction. I think that you kind of get the heavy lifting out of the way first, and then the auction. I think about that first that fundraising moment, that special appeal. We can have 100% of the people there involved, right? We can incorporate everybody in the room in that special appeal, and not everybody's going to bid on a live auction package, right? So think about that, take it into account, and see if that helps you at all. And that's basically what I had to say today. I wanted to jump on here. It's kind of been on my mind as I've been talking to groups about what their agenda is going to look like, what their run of show is going to look like for their event coming up in the fall. And it used to be a pretty pat answer, escalator or curve. It's either going to be after or it's going to be 2/3 of the way through. Now, there's a lot of different things that go into it. So make sure that you place that special appeal in the best position for your organization to maximize the net results. Remember, folks, it's the most money you're going to make per minute of the entire night, and make sure you treat it that way and give it the attention that it deserves to make that happen. So, anyhow, hey, I want to thank you for joining us today. Remind you that we're here every Wednesday at noon Pacific time, and talking about the fundraising BIDness world and what can be done. Want to encourage you, if you have any questions, reach out, geventsllc.com. Love to chat with you about your event. There's a Calendly tool utility on that website. You can schedule a personal one-on-one consultation free of charge, right? Just punch in there and it will send you the Zoom link, and let's get together and talk about your event and see how we can help you make the maximum amount of money you can for your favorite nonprofit. And then, hey, folks, this was episode 46. If you'd like to, or 65, I should say, 65. If you would like to tune in to check out, we built quite the library, 65 episodes. Go to Fundraising BIDness Talk. Check it out. We've said a lot of really good things, gotten a lot of really good feedback from folks that say, hey, God, I went back and I checked it out. You had an idea several months ago and it really resonated, and I couldn't remember. I went back to your website and checked it out. It was fantastic. So fundraisingbidnesstalk.com, all episodes. Look forward to seeing you next week right here on Wednesday at noon. Until then, have a terrific day. Enjoy your summer, and remember, the last bid always wins. Have a great day.